Our next speaker is Matt Cox, Dr. Matt Cox. He holds a PhD in climate and energy policy from Georgia Tech, and is the founder of Greenlink Analytics, where he leads strategic vision, research methodology, and policy modeling. Under Matt's leadership, Greenlink has supported more than 200 cities in developing strategies projected to avoid 9.7 billion metric tons of CO2, prevent 32,000 premature deaths from air pollution, and save over $1.2 trillion. So lots of high level of impact there. Happy to have Matt here. Thanks so much. Pass it over to you, Matt.
All right, good morning. Hope everybody can see the deck. Perfect. Okay, so just a second on Greenlink. We are a clean energy and equity research organization. We do our stuff at the state and local level across the US. We try to advance the clean energy transition as fast and fair as possible. And so we've had the opportunity over the last 12 years to get to work very closely with over 200 cities across the United States, providing them with key data, policy analysis, and in many cases, multi-year engagements to start with community engagement and carry things all the way through the final delivery of plans and policies. I am Matt Cox, so as mentioned, I'm CEO and founder. I've been here for the whole run, like my title would suggest. Sounds like Doug is pretty much in the same boat as far as that's concerned. Prior to that, I was the City of Atlanta's first energy manager and helped move the city from unranked for energy policy when I started to fourth nationally by the time I stepped out of that role. And I've gotten to work and scale a lot of the technologies and approaches that we use now to try to help governments, community-based organizations, corporate leaders, and utilities shift towards more and better clean energy approaches. Gretchen just mentioned a lot of our impacts, so I won't spend a ton of time on this slide. I will jump more into the energy affordability place. So one of the things that we maintain is GEM, our Greenlink Equity Map platform. So I pulled our data from that to see what percent of households were lacking affordable energy across the country, and then threw it into this map. So you can see from this, so affordable energy is considered a situation where a household is spending less than 6% of their income on their energy bills. And when we take a look across the country to see where where it's not affordable, and we can see that this is an issue that kind of crosses party lines. It's pretty widespread. When we take a look at who has the worst affordability challenge, we'd be saying Mississippi, where you have essentially half of the households paying more than 6% of their income towards their energy bills. Utah has the least in that regard, so down at 18%. So this does become something that you can see is nationally distributed. It goes across political divides, although you can also see things get a little darker there in the Southeast. We have more of this concentrated in that area. Today, there's 45 million households that are struggling with energy affordability, which is slightly over a third of the population. And then in our projections of where things are going in the next 5 years, we anticipate that number will grow by at least 2 million. I ran that number before some of the geopolitical things started to occur this year. So I think we could say that's probably a conservative estimate at this point. Looking specifically at the states that are a part of BRESE, so this kind of Southeast snapshot, I kept the map from the prior slide kind of up here in the top right, so you can still have that as a point of reference. But then also took our data down to say how many households in each of these states are in a situation where their energy is not currently affordable. And did that on purpose because oftentimes when people are trying to figure out what needs to be done, you're trying to stand up a policy or a program, the normalized percentage is a lot less informative than the actual number of households you need to serve. So if we were trying to figure out like what's the scale of the resource that's needed, how many people need assistance, actually knowing that number is a lot more important than knowing, it's 35%. So looking at the map based on the number of households that have unaffordable energy, Florida has the most acute challenge. And that represents actually almost a quarter of the Southeast's entire set of households that are dealing with unaffordable energy bills today. And then you would say that that's followed by North Carolina and Georgia as kind of number 2 and number 3. So it sounds like we've got folks from those states on the call today. We are also expecting the number of households that are lacking affordable energy to increase by about 1 million in the next 5 years. So basically half of the increase in households nationally will probably take place in the Southeast region. So why does this matter? Poor energy affordability is correlated with poor quality of life. So there you have, and we talk about this often as kind of like the 4 legs of a stool. So I think people often talk about 3 legs on a stool. Well, there's 4 in this one. What we will see is energy, health, housing, and race usually come together in this conversation. So with poor affordability, we will find poor health outcomes like a higher incidence of heart disease, pulmonary diseases, asthma, depression, even things like poor sleep can be tracked and correlated back to this. We will see items around housing. We've published research looking specifically at evictions and foreclosure, where we were able to use some fixed effects regression models and tease out that an increase in energy burden is a leading indicator of an increase in evictions in the following year. So as you're seeing those energy bills, that percent of income on energy bills creep up, you are probably going to see an increase in evictions and foreclosure to follow. And then neighborhood instability is the last one we put on this list. We were able to take that housing instability research one step further and look at displacement trends using, as far as we know, the first use of machine learning to predict displacement in cities across the United States. And we were able to, from that, also identify that that reduction in energy affordability is also one of the key drivers of displacement that you will see across the Southeast, but also across the country. So why does this happen and where do we not see things moving forward as much? A large part of the existing policy landscape and programs tend to focus more on bill pay assistance than focusing on systemic housing solutions like building codes or weatherization and energy efficiency. So the long-term fixes that will help keep folks out of an energy affordability challenge often receive a lower proportion of the funding than the direct bill pay assistance that will help this month, but doesn't really necessarily carry on for years. Additionally, we also see regulatory requirements that will restrict utility programmatic investments from going forward. It's not uncommon for us to see, especially in low-income communities, that there's 30 to 40% cost-effective energy savings potentials within those homes. However, in some of the research we've done, we've identified that the existing cost tests that are applied at public utility commissions across the Southeast stop a lot of utility investments from going forward. So programs that might have been able to help with those investments will get blocked, and so those households end up going wanting. So how can we think about this? Well, today's bills hurt for a lot of people, and tomorrow's might be worse if we don't change things. I think that's kind of the short summary of that prior to the two slides I started with. We need to bring a broad perspective in order to address affordability concerns. So from barriers, I would suggest trying to assess your challenges. And we've developed this framework that groups barriers into regulatory, information, or financial categories. So on the regulatory side, you might see things like changing the utility cost tests would really help. Improving the building code could really help. For the information side, the most common thing that people are familiar with as far as an information policy that's assisting here is like Energy Star. So building labeling or appliance ratings can be a part of the solution. And then finance-wise, a lot of times people don't have the upfront capital to pay for things, even if they make financial sense from an independent kind of long-run math perspective. So things like rebates, tax credits, strong loans, like we've been hearing about earlier, all assist. And in general, partnerships are critical, but especially so in the Southeast. Very little happens because of a single person or a single organization's willpower, even if some groups are champions and others are more quiet supporters. So there's a need to be doing ABC, always building capacity, so that we're able to bring local governments, utilities, community-based groups, nonprofits, corporate players kind of all together, understand potential solutions and try to build consensus on a path forward. Couple short case studies to maybe make this feel a little nicer here. It's not all doom and gloom. We have some successes. So I pulled a couple that Greenlink had worked very closely on. So one is the Florida Power and Light Solar Together program, which some of you may be familiar with, but we were engaged as expert witnesses in the case that led to the creation of this program. So worked at the Florida Public Service Commission with a handful of other advocates and put forward recommendations where we were ultimately successful in getting FP&L approval to go ahead and build 74.8 megawatt utility scale solar installations. And it was very specifically at that level. Anything over 75 megawatts has to go through heightened regulatory scrutiny. So 74.8, you were in the clear. But in exchange for those developments being approved, there was a carve out for the LMI communities. And so Florida, especially at that time, had very few energy efficiency programs underway. FP&L agreed to provide 10,000 energy audits and to create 10,000 spaces for low-income participants to participate in the community solar offering that this program puts forward. And the low-income carve-out within that program ensures that it's a net cash flow positive scenario for the low-income participants from day one. So the middle income, upper income folks are expected to see a return on investment from participating in this program, but it's usually around like year 6 or 7 where it turns into a cash flow positive situation for them. The low income folks can sign in and benefit immediately. That started a run. So Duke Energy saw this in Florida, and once we got the finer points ironed out with the Public Service Commission, Duke essentially just copy pasted it over into their service territory as well. And what we've seen is now Florida has the fourth largest community solar programs in the United States. And it is the largest community solar program offering that is in a state that does not have a renewable portfolio standard. So essentially, it does not have a mandate driving that forward. Another case study here is Weatherize ATL. So Greenlink was one of the core implementation partners in designing and delivering this program in Atlanta. There was a federal grant that the city was able to get, built off of work that we had done with the Clean Energy Advisory Board in prior years, but estimating essentially once we got to the end of designing Atlanta's 100% clean energy plan, how much is it going to cost if we wanted energy to be affordable in every neighborhood across the city? And our estimates came back as hundreds of millions of dollars. There was a lot of work that needed to be done. And so the city went to work trying to get funding to stand up a pilot to start funding this work to go forward. They succeeded in landing a federal grant from the ARPA program, which created an initial pot that this program was ultimately run from. So with a few $1,000,000, we were able to do a pretty strong community engagement process, engaged several thousand residents across the city, made them aware of what we were doing. Ultimately ended up providing weatherization and energy efficiency for 160 low-income households, predominantly Black, elderly, empty nesters in the Atlanta area. So also sounds like one of the common demographics that Doug is working with on a fixed income. And that has now led to further efforts that the city is undertaking to try to address the affordability issues today. So what do we think is next? I think the role of building codes really is if we have better buildings now, we will have better buildings later. That's going to lead to better affordability outcomes in the long run. If codes had existed and been enforced in the past, a lot of the households and communities that need assistance to make energy affordable wouldn't be in that position today. Their homes would be better insulated, they would have better equipment, their homes would be safer, they would have more comfortable conditions. If we start doing that work now, we can avoid repeating the mistakes of the past and putting the next generation into the same position. This trifecta of action, the improve, update, and enforce, that's going to require different efforts, although they are similar regardless of whether that building code is set at the state or the local level. There's going to be coalition building to create support for improving and updating the codes. We'll need funding and training for building offices to effectively enforce the code. And then the coalition can actually create the political will needed for the enforcement itself to succeed. BRESE Collaborative that was mentioned at the beginning is producing state fact sheets that can help people get started, and as will tools like GEM. So yeah, I think that's it for my presentation today, but please feel free to connect with us and I will take any questions that folks have at this point.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you bringing examples and everything forward today. I do see in the Q&A, Lori asked, I would like to better understand what you mean about programs that could help with energy efficiency being blocked. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, so this can get pretty wonky. I'll try to keep it at a higher level, and if we want to dig deeper and have time to, more than happy to. There are 4 traditional cost tests that are used to evaluate energy efficiency programs across the country. that emerged from California in actually I think it was in 1980, was when they first published this set. So you have the total resource cost test, the RIM test, participant cost test, and utility cost tests. And then there's occasionally other ones that get added on, like there'll be a social cost test, or there's new things that are being developed now by several collaboratives that are trying to say, hey, these four probably outlived their usefulness. But when we look across the Southeast, a lot of our utility commissions say that unless a proposed program or a program that's in the field right now passes all four tests, it can't go forward. You're not allowed to bring that. And the most restricted of those is the RIM test, the rate impact measure test, which for pretty much anything a utility may want to do, you're going to have an impact that will fail the RIM test from the efficiency side. There's very few program designs that can pass that. Really, behavioral programs are about the only things that can. So we've had success doing things around like data access and benchmarking programs at the commission level, where that's been able to go forward. But if we wanted to run an incentive program or a direct install where the utility was paying for upgrades to happen in people's homes, these will pass total resource cost because they're generally cost effective. They can be cost effective from the utility standpoint and the participant standpoint, but they're going to fail on RIM. And so that has been historically a major barrier towards making any sorts of efficiency programs move forward. So we will often see situations where if we can get the utility to want something to move forward and we can help commission staff understand why this is a path forward, you may get specific exemptions for those. For some of those programs, commissioners usually have the authority to vote to go around the rules that are in front of them. So if there's a strong enough coalition that's asking for it, you can see that come through. Or these can be stood up as pilot programs that kind of continue. So maybe they're not held to the same level of scrutiny as the fully certified programs are. That is how we got low-income energy efficiency programs started in Georgia back in 2016. There had not been any. We got a pilot started that Georgia Power and the commission staff supported. And then that pilot doubled in the 2019 case and doubled again in the 2022 case, and is now actually the biggest chunk of the residential funding that is provided through Georgia Power's integrated resource plan. But it has been kind of a long process to try to work around those tests. I think at a higher level, you start to get to questions on should we just change the rules and say, you only need to pass 2 of these tests, or maybe we have a different test in mind. And that's kind of what you see moving in several states across the country. Or just kind of a relaxing. I think in Virginia, when we got Virginia to really start their efforts in 2018, 2019, that was, instead of having to pass all 4, you only needed to pass 2. That was kind of the change in the language that allowed a whole lot more activity to get underway.
Appreciate you expanding on that, Matt. I think we are a little short on time, so if folks have more questions, please keep adding them into the chat and I'll take note of them to get back to you all. And I'll pass it off to Gretchen if you want to add anything and introduce the next speaker.
Great, thanks, Sammy. And thanks so much, Matt. I'm grateful to be collaborating with Greenlink on BRESE. I did want to let folks know that Greenlink will be presenting, doing a demo of the GEM tool that Matt mentioned at a working group next week on May 19th at 1 p.m. So if you want to get a closer look at how they've pulled the data, and I think it's one thing I really love about Greenlink is the work is so data driven, and the overlays they show with the kind of ripple effect of impact is profound and kind of helps those of us working in this field make the case for, how to move the needle. So if you want to learn more about their GEM tool, join the working group, the Energy Resiliency Working Group on May 19th at 1:00. I really appreciate your presentation, Matt, and the time today. Thank you so much.